Part 1, Arrow. Arrow blinks. She has been waiting for a long time. Through the scope of her rifle, she can see 3 soldiers standing beside a low wall on a hill above Sarajevo. One looks at the city as though he's remembering something. One holds a lighter out so another can light a cigarette. It's obvious they have no idea they're in her sights. Perhaps, she thinks, they believe they're too far from the front line. They're wrong. Perhaps they think no one could thread a bullet between the buildings that separate them from her. Again, they're wrong. She can kill any one of them, and maybe even 2 of them, whenever she chooses, and soon she'll make her choice. So the first thing you should note about Arrow is that she's a girl. The second thing that you should note is there's a lot of short sentences in her chapters. They're wrong. Again, they're wrong. Arrow blinks. So there's a very short sentence theme that we kind of see in her writing. The soldiers Arrow is watching have a good reason to think they're safe. Were almost anyone else hunting them, they would be. They're almost a kilometer away, and the rifle she uses, the kind nearly all the defenders use, has a practical range of 800 meters. Beyond that, the chances of hitting a target are remote. This isn't the case for Arrow. She can make a bullet do things that others can't. So this is the first time it's kind of mentioned how Arrow's a little bit different from the other snipers. For most people, the long-distance shooting is a question of the correct combination of observation and mathematics. Figure out the wind's speed and direction and the target's distance. Measurements are calculated and factored into questions, taking into account the velocity of the bullet, the drop over time, the magnification of the scope. It's no different from throwing a ball. A ball isn't thrown at a target. It's thrown in an arc, calculated to intersect with the target. Arrow doesn't take measurements. She doesn't calculate formulas. She simply sends the bullet where she knows it needs to go. She has trouble understanding why other snipers can't do this. She's hidden among the detritus of a burned-out office tower, a few meters back from a window with a view of the city's southern hills. Anyone looking would have a difficult, if not impossible time, spotting a slight young woman with shoulder-length black hair, concealed within the smoking wreckage of a workday life. She lies on her stomach, pressed to the floor, her legs partially covered by an old newspaper. Her eyes, large, blue, and bright, are the only sign of life. Arrow believes she's different from the snipers on the hills. She shoots only soldiers. They shoot unarmed men, women, and children. When they kill a person, they seek a result that is far greater than the elimination of that individual. They are trying to kill the city. Every death chips away at Sarajevo of Arrow's youth with as much certainty as any mortar shell battering a building. Those left are robbed not only of a fellow citizen, but of the memory of what it was to be alive in a time before men on the hills shot at you while you tried to cross the street. 10 years ago, when she was 18 and was not called Arrow, she borrowed her father's car and drove to the countryside to visit friends. It was a bright, clear day, and the car felt alive to her, as though the way she and the car moved together was a sort of destiny, and everything was happening exactly as it ought to. As she rounded a corner, one of her favorite songs came on the radio, and sunlight filtered through the trees the way it does with lace curtains, reminding her of her grandmother, and tears began to slide down her cheeks. Not for her grandmother, who was then still very much among the living, but because she felt an enveloping happiness to be alive, a joy made stronger by the certainty that someday it would all come to an end. It overwhelmed her, made her pull the car to the side of the road. Afterwards, she felt a little foolish and never spoke to anyone about it. So this is a very good description of what Arrow was like before. So she had friends, she had a family. She has a moment where she hears one of her favorite songs and the sunlight comes through the trees where you can see the shadow and the light kind of going back and forth. That could be a connection moment, something that reminds you of something that you have seen, right? As well, she's got a family, and she's so overwhelmed by this happiness that she is so thankful to be alive. And that is very different to her later. Now, however, she knows she wasn't being foolish. She realizes that for no particular reason, she stumbled into the core of what it is to be human. It's a rare gift to understand that your life is wondrous and that it won't last forever. So when Arrow pulls the trigger and ends the life of one of the soldiers in her sights, she'll do so not because she wants him dead, although she can't deny that she does, but because the soldiers have robbed her and almost everyone else in the city of this gift. That life will end has become so self-evident that it's lost all meaning. But worse for Arrow is the damage done to the distance between what she knows and what she believes. For although she knows her tears that day were not ridiculous sentimentality of a teenage girl, she doesn't really believe it. From the elevated fortress of Vraka above the occupied neighborhood of Grabaka, her targets bombed the city with an assumed impunity. In the Second World War, Vraka was a place where the Nazis tortured and killed those who resisted them. The names of the dead are carved on the steps, but at the time, few fighters used their real names. So this is interesting. In World War II, a lot of people learned a big lesson of who was to die and who was to live. And that's the same thing in Canada. But it's been a long time since World War II, and those things seem to have been forgotten. The soldiers, they took new names that said more about them than any boastful story told by drunks in a bar, names that defied the governments, who later tried to twist their deeds into propaganda. It said they took these new names so their families wouldn't be in danger, so they could slip in and out of two lives. But Arrow believes they took these names so they could separate themselves from what they had to do, so the person who fought and killed could someday be put away. And this is very interesting because Arrow wants to differentiate between these two parts of herself. To hate people because they hated her first, and then to hate them because of what they've done to her, has created desire to separate the part of her that will fight back, that will enjoy fighting back, and from the part that never wanted to fight in the first place. Using her real name would make her no different from the men she kills. It would be a death greater than the end of her life. So that refers to how it would be the death of her soul, right? The end of her life would be to no longer be different from who she was before. From the first time she picked up a rifle to kill, she's called herself Arrow. There are some who continue to call her by her former name. She ignores them. If they persist, she tells them that her name is Arrow now. No one argues. No one questions what she must do. Everyone does something to stay alive. But if they were to press her, she would say, I am Arrow because I hate them. The woman you knew hated nobody. So this tells us why she calls herself Arrow, right? She did not hate anyone before the war. Now she's become a weapon. Arrow has chosen today's targets because she doesn't want the men at Vraka to feel safe. She will have to make an extremely difficult shot. Though she hides on the 9th floor of this depredated building, the fortress is an uphill run, and she must slip the bullet between a series of buildings that stand between her and her target. The soldiers must stay within a space of about 3 meters, and smoke from burning buildings periodically obscures her view. As soon as she lets off a shot, every sniper on the southern hill will begin to search for her. They'll quickly figure out where she is. At that point, they'll shell the building, into the ground if necessary. And the reason this building is burned out is that it's an easy target. Her chances of escaping the repercussions of her own bullets are slim. But this isn't an unusual set of challenges. She has sent bullets through trickier air and faced swifter retaliation in the past. Arrow knows exactly how long it will take for them to locate her. She knows exactly where the snipers will look and exactly where the motors will hit. By the time the shelling stops, she'll be gone, though none will understand how, even those on her own side defending the city. If she told them, they wouldn't understand. They wouldn't believe that she knows what a weapon will do because Arrow herself is a weapon. She possesses a particular kind of genius few would want to accept. If she could choose, she wouldn't believe in it either. But she knows it isn't up to her. You don't choose what to believe. Belief chooses you. One of the 3 soldiers moves away from the other 2. Arrow tenses, waiting to see if the 2 salute him. If they do, she will fire. For a moment, she's unsure, unable to read their gestures. Then the soldier steps out of the narrow corridor her bullet can travel through. He has, in an instant of seeming inconsequence, saved his life. A life is composed almost entirely of actions like this, Arrow knows. She watches them a while longer, waiting for a detail to emerge that will dictate which one receives the first bullet. She wants to fire twice, to kill both of them.